All right. So, Sharice, I had to dig into the crate. I had to go get one of the heaviest hitters that I know. Unfortunately, she didn't go to Knoxville College. However, she did. She was, and correct me if I'm wrong. She was the one of the first female. Uh, she was one of the first female African American, one of the first African American females to be an athletic director at a Division I institution. Tell me if I'm right or wrong.
I'm one of very few. I was not one of the first. There were many before me that I stand on their shoulders. But I was the first one at North Carolina Central.
That's what I was looking for. Okay, you were the first one at North Carolina Central University. So, Sharice, I had to go get somebody that she was like, oh my God, I know who that is. So I had to go reach out, touch some greatness, and say, boom, I got her. I got her to come on the show and talk to us and tell her story and talk about how and what made her want to do with the things that she's done. So,
but before you start, and again, thank you, Dr. McCree, for joining us. So this comes full circle because I took volleyball under her in undergrad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, and you took it during volleyball season. Was the best time to take the class.
Yep.
So when you said who it was, and we've touched, like, she and I have our paths have crossed so many times outside, like in ways I didn't even realize. And we'll hit on some of those too. So, Dr. McCree, I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. It's a blessing that we all are here every day. And I just want to say I have been very blessed with my career as the first permanent female athletic director at North Carolina Central University. And for the 28 years that I served there, was so fortunate to have come across so many amazing students like yourself, and administrators and coaches and chancellors in that span of time. And so very few people can say that they actually had the opportunity to work in their hometown and work at a university where their parents and so many other family members graduated from. And so for the 28 years I spent at North Carolina Central as a volleyball coach and softball coach and faculty member and athletic director for 14 years. Now I am in the second phase of my career and loving life, but just can't say enough and thanks enough for all the people that allowed me to touch their lives and impact lives at North Carolina Central University over these last 28 years.
That's awesome.
That's beautiful. Now I have a question. I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. McCree, you were an athlete yourself, are an athlete yourself. So what made you did you ever dream of being an athletic director? Or is that something that came later on down the road?
So I actually wanted to be a lawyer. My undergrad degree is in criminal justice, actually. And that was my plans until a woman named Judy Martino, who was the head volleyball coach at North Carolina State at the time, reached out to me when I was a senior at George Washington University and offered me a grad assistant position to come and coach get my master's degree. So that actually was my formal introduction into the career field as a coach. And then I saw Dr. Leroy T. Walker one day, and he and I were talking, and he said, Ingrid, there's not enough Black women in athletic administration. And so that planted a seed very, very early on. I was still in grad school. And so when I finished grad school and started coaching at North Carolina A&T, I remembered all of that. and shared with the athletic director at that time, Willie Burden, that I wanted to get into administration as well. And so he afforded me the opportunity to kind of oversee study hall for all the athletes at A&T. And that kind of started my early beginnings formally. I will say when I was at George Washington playing as an undergrad, I worked in our Smith Center because I ran out of money that my parents gave me when I got there. So I started working at the front desk as a, pretty much checking IDs. Then I worked in an equipment room. And then I started working with different events, gymnastics events, basketball. And so honestly, that was probably where the seed was planted early on, but I had no clue, no aspirations to be in athletics, but I was already learning behind the scenes of facility management, game day management, and didn't even know it. I was just collecting the check. So it's amazing how things that you do in your life, and I'm always telling young people, and coaches, don't just talk about your coaching experiences, talk about all your experiences. Did you work at Bojangles or McDonald's? Because that all has something to do with your skill set and what you learn about working with people, being held accountable, being responsible. So I think probably early when I was at GW, that's kind of where the seed was planted subconsciously.
I got you. So I'm a hog. I don't want to hog in.
Yeah, he's gonna hog the interview, which is fine.
Hey, because I've been waiting. You don't understand. I've been waiting for this interview for a while. So you were a former volleyball coach.
Yes.
Now I went to my first volleyball game. I watched North Carolina Central play. I think it was Bethune-Cookman. So I watched volleyball on TV. I watched volleyball. I watched volleyball here and there. So my question: what will it take to make, say, a North Carolina Central be? I don't want to say that I'm gonna use competitive, but that's not the right word. What's gonna make a North Carolina Central as competitive as a Wisconsin in the volleyball arena? What will it take, in your opinion, to make that transition?
Scholarships, which they are fully funded, but I would say recruiting dollars. Those budgets at Wisconsin, the Power Five, it's nothing for them to have $50,000 to $100,000 just for recruiting.
For like a volleyball.
For volleyball. NC State budget for recruiting is probably $35,000, $40,000. And they're not even in the top 10 or top 25 in the country.
Wow.
So you're talking about resources to be able to go out there and identify the talent. Having an adequate coaching staff. Right now, it's only 2 full-time coaches. Wisconsin probably has 3 that you're allowed to have, but then they also have their own strength coach. They also have their own sports nutritionist. They also have their own volleyball operations director. So it's more than just, it is more than just scholarships. It is so much other things that need to be in order for a coach to be competitive on that level. Now, fortunately, because there's so many choices now in the transfer portal and all of that, you're seeing more teams now be successful at a higher level because of that. You see more MEAC schools beating Big South and, some Big Sky, some other conferences that they normally struggle with. And it's because there's so many choices out there for young people, young women now, in terms of where they want to go. And now they're looking at fit more so than, it's Division I.
Right.
They're looking at what else can I gain from going to this school in a different environment, more so than, okay, would I have a chance to win in a national championship? So, I think it will take so much more, but I am excited and I'm optimistic about where volleyball is right now. in the MEAC, in the SWAC, in the CIAA, and the SIAC in terms of just looking at our schools.
Gotcha. Because you're a volleyball mom.
I am a volleyball mom still, yes. So my daughter is at Norfolk State University as a freshman, playing volleyball. So worked really hard for her to get to that point, and she's just very, very fortunate to have the opportunity because, you know, COVID for all sports in all class of 21 and 22, it was rough.
Right.
You know, because of the current athletes that got their extra year, the super seniors, and roster management was very challenging. So for any of the young people in the class of 21 and 22 that got scholarships or opportunities just to make a roster in college, that was something very special.
Okay. All right.
How was the transition for you in taking the school from D2 to a D1?
Wow, it was a lot. And in fact, I'm speaking with about 20 senior managers at Lenovo on Tuesday about pretty much the transition for us because they're transitioning as well as a company. And so very similar in terms of how important leadership is, how important making sure you understand yourself at all times, because everything is going to be coming at you because you're it. The buck stops with you. So you have to be a very strong individual. You have to make sure you understand how you're leading your team through change, because our coaches, our student athletes at the time, we were losing a lot. We weren't in a conference, you know, so we were just kind of out there in no man's land. So how do you make sure that you keep the team motivated and keep them on the same page with regards to where you want to go? And then with your fans and your alumni and the rest of the university, it's all about education. You know, making sure that they understood Division I rules. They understood how we have to go from a $2 million budget to a $12-13 million budget. A lot of educating, a lot of I was making sure I was accessible to people. I was probably more accessible than most athletic directors, but I didn't want anybody to assume anything, right? So my whole thing was, if you need to know something, call and ask me. You know, we may not agree, but I respect what you have to say. But here's our plan, and this is what we have to do. So we had a strategic plan. I think we were very successful in sticking with that plan. And that was critical to understanding what the NCAA was going to expect, what, you know, the department and the team of us were going to expect, as well as the university. So, but it was hard because I remember Coach Hayes, my predecessor, said that we were going to go through a black hole. And we did, you know, and so, but fortunately, because football and basketball did well, you know, at the end of that transition, that made it a little bit less challenging. And people saw something very quickly. Normally it takes a school transitioning quite a while for your two revenue sports to really do well.
Right.
But because we did, then people started buying into why we left the CIAA and went Division I.
No, and go ahead, Jason.
No. Go ahead. Because I'm telling you, I got a million. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, even as being an alumni, coming back and having worked with athletics, so being a manager for the softball team, and just seeing how those operations worked, and coming back and, you know, able to do stuff with Coach Moten, and then seeing the facilities growing. And it's just like, knowing that I was there during the time where it was a housing issue. So we were staying in hotels and apartment complexes across the city, and now seeing all of these new facilities being built to accommodate the fact that we're now in a new division, or and then also having to increase student growth.
Mhm.
So all of those different pieces working together. Of course, it just wasn't as an AD, but all of those different parts on campus having to get through that same hiccup and headache together. So it's been amazing. I've enjoyed it.
It was a lot of work internally because, you know, the NCAA said you have 5 years to become Division I, and really in your second year, you had to be in compliance with all of Division I rules, scholarship limits and things like that. So it was a challenge internally because we had to move so quickly, and some of the operations with the university were not at that point yet.
Right.
So it was a lot of developing relationships on campus and really having to get the buy-in from all of the different, divisions and departments to really understand why we are doing this and that we need your help, because the student, at the end of the day, it's the student athlete experience. So I would say that was the biggest challenge, probably was internally. I can handle the fans and, people were upset because now we don't get to play in the CIAA tournament and all that. That's okay. I can deal with that. But the biggest challenge for me was really educating the campus and my campus partners on, why we have to do this and why we need to move with a sense of urgency.
And did it show, even with me working in recreation and going from different municipalities, sometimes it shows how antiquated the processes are that are in place. And it's like, it's time to now come to more current, operations.
Yep. Yep. And I think I would say we help push that envelope, especially on the academic side. With technology advances, with just processes, because, the fear of getting in trouble with the NCAA compliance wise. So you always had a little bit of, hey, if we're doing this for our student athletes, or if they're experiencing this, and it's taking them, 3 weeks to get a change of major form signed manually. And our student athletes have advocates, right? We got counselors, coaches that are advocating for them to get these things done. What about the student that is not a student athlete?
Right.
General student population. How are they handling and getting through some of these, processes? And, it's just them. So, so we were able to, and I always say that about athletics, our graduation rates are higher, our GPA is usually higher than the general student population. So whatever that we're doing or athletic departments are doing in general, that should be the model or a model for student success for everybody else.
Yeah. Okay,
so,
Jake, go ahead.
So I've been holding this one. So I want to publicly apologize, because when you hired Coach Mack, I was venomously opposed to that hire. I was like, oh man, he's a position coach. How you gonna hire a position coach to be a head coach of a Division I program?
He was a coordinator. He was a coordinator for a year.
They didn't say that though. They said that when he was at South Alabama, he was a receiver coach. I'm like, come on, Ingrid. I called him by your first name and everything. I was told, I dropped the doctor and everything. I was totally disrespectful. So I'm gonna go ahead and apologize, because that hire showed me, I'm like, yo, you saw something in that guy. You saw something in that coach that not only resonated throughout the program, but I think it made the basketball team play harder. It made the track team play. I think even the baseball team had a great season that year. It was just like the fever, the North. It was like that energy resonated through all the athletic department, and it re-energized them. And North Carolina Central Athletics was like back at the top of the top in the area. And I was like, man, she picked the diamond out the rough. I was like, man, look at her.
I appreciate it. But, he came highly recommended, actually from Dr. Perkins. from Skip. He was actually the coordinator at Pine Bluff the year that one of the years that Skip was there. And so he just called and said, hey, you need to just check out this young man. And I said, okay. And
Wow.
yeah, he did a good job. He's doing a phenomenal job now. You know, his goal is to be an FBS coach, and I pray that he's given that opportunity very soon.
Yeah. So I had to go ahead and give you that one. I was like, man, that was a big one. But now this is the one that, gosh, hey man, I'm big on accountability and accepting your goods and your bads. But you had to do something recently, well, not recently, before you left. You had to cancel the baseball program.
I know.
Tell
I was
me,
sad.
now, me, I've coached baseball since my son was 4, and North Carolina Central's always been the school I would tell guys like, hey man, you guys just go apply to Central, walk onto the baseball team, and try to play. But they were playing well. Like, what were some of the things that caused the decision to be made? 'Cause I know it was a tough one.
It was tough. That was out of probably between, there's 2 times that was probably the worst times as an athletic director in my career. The first was bowling, when we had to discontinue the sport of women's bowling, and then baseball. I love baseball. I was very instrumental in when we brought it back, and that was the hardest thing I've done. And but when you have to look at your finances, and because COVID affected everyone immensely with their budgets, but you also have to understand that it's not, those decisions are not made individually. I had been charged with balancing the budget or getting the budget down by about $2.8 million. And that was right before COVID. So, and I don't know whether it's because maybe anticipation of enrollment challenges, because as a state institution, you're heavily, 40% of the budget is basically student athletic fee. So when that changes or goes down, dips, that's affecting, the bottom line. And so I was charged with cutting the budget by $2.8 million. We looked at every angle. We cut about 12 positions. Everybody, we took a furlough. We were the only entity on campus that took a furlough. And so when it came down to sports, of course, looking at your women's sports versus men's sports, and you don't really want to mess with the women's sports too much, then you start looking at, okay, which sport has the highest expense outside of your revenue sports? And baseball was costing us about $550,000 a year. And that was not even still funding it at the way it should have been funded. So, we looked at that. We looked at track. But track, you have 3 seasons. So in 3 different sports, the same student athletes. And so unfortunately, baseball was the largest chunk of the budget in terms of the non-revenue sports. And unfortunately, we had to cut it. I really hope that they can bring it back, because it was unfortunately, it put the MEAC in a bad situation, because now they're only down to 4. And with the NCAA, you have to have 6 in order to play a championship and to get an automatic bid. So it had a lot of implications. The biggest was the student athletes. Some of them did finish at NCCU, some of them transferred. I think there's one playing at Duke. So, and Coach Kerner is a good person. He's a good man. He was a good coach, and our team was doing really well. So that is the downsides, but it was a financial decision.
Yeah, I know those. You said 2.8 million. I was like, I'll maybe get some alumni to donate some money, but you said 2.8 million. I was like, whoa, gotta dig deep on that one, buddy.
Yeah. And so hopefully they'll recalibrate and they'll be able to. The challenge was most FCS schools, or every FCS school, football championship subdivision, is supplemented by the university. Whether they can use state dollars or auxiliary dollars. In North Carolina, only auxiliary dollars could be used. And so again, enrollment affects everything, right? So if you have a dip of 200 students in enrollment, that's 200 students that's not paying for housing, meals,
Right.
the bookstore. So all of that area is where schools are supplemented by the university. Athletic programs are supplemented. It's usually auxiliary funds. So if they're down by 200 times $1,900 a meal plan, we're down 200 times $847 per student. That's paying an athletic fee. So all of that, impacts the budget. So
wow, you look at athletics as, like, I tell folks, man, athletics is a business within the institution. Like that's a fundraiser within a fundraiser. Like if you're not making money through athletics, you're missing the boat some kind of way.
There's only about 29 schools that are. So you are contributing to the revenue, right, of the university, the bottom line. But as far as, are you ever going to be in the black? No, there's not. But 29 schools in all of 1,108 Division 1, 2, and 3 in the NCAA that actually make a profit.
Oh wow, 29.
And that was probably 2 years ago. So I'm not sure what it is now, but that's very, very, so there's no Division 1 FCS school
that's making a profit.
Basically, that's not in the red. Now, they won't say they're not in red because, right, they're getting supplemental revenue from their institution. So, wow. And that could be anywhere from, the highest that we had at one point was maybe 3.5 million, which is what we said, here's what we are going to need every year from the institution to have a great, just to have balance our budget. Well, that went from 3.5 and it was cut down to 1.5. So that's where the 2.8. So 2 of the 2.8 that I had to cut from the budget my last year. And we were on a trajectory upwards. But then, of course, COVID hit, and there lies in the story.
COVID just messed everything up.
Just messed everything up. But hopefully they're on the mend. And again, enrollment, if our goal was to get to, I think, 9,500 students, then that would have decreased the amount of institutional support that we would have needed. Because for a Division I FCS program, we were generating enough self-generated revenue, meaning ticket sales, fundraising, corporate sponsorships, game guarantees, everything outside of student fee and institutional support at about 30%, which is very good compared to our peers in FCS. So, and our goal was to get to where we could generate about 40% of our budget as self-generated dollars.
Right. Okay. All right.
It's stuff we don't think about.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So if I got to put your life in a timeline, we got Ingrid, we got Dr. Ingrid, the athlete, Dr. Ingrid, coach, Dr. Ingrid, the athletic director. Now this is phase 4. Dr. Ingrid's going to be what?
Dr. Ingrid is.
I forgot Dr. Ingrid, the mom and the wife. So I forgot those 2 important ones. Forgive me.
So I would say I'm Dr. Ingrid, the authentically filtered consultant right now.
Oh man, you got to explain that one. Authentically filtered. Oh my gosh, I got to hear it.
So, in my role as, with the university, I've always been very transparent and very honest with people. But you also have to be very, diplomatic because of all the various roles and the people that you engage with. And not that I will ever be disrespectful to anyone, but now I can share things from a perspective as a Black woman, even more in a greater realm.
Okay.
I have several engagements that I'm collaborating with that allow me to do so much more outside of just in the box of higher ed.
Okay.
And higher ed box can restrict you sometimes. And so now I just say I'm authentically filtered because I can share things that perhaps from a different perspective that has never been shared before.
Okay.
But still in a filtered way.
I can dig it. I can dig it.
I like it. I like it.
I do. So, Doc, I want to say
Jason, hold on one moment, please. Hold on.
So, Dr. Ingrid Wicker McCree, I just like saying your whole name. So, so I want to first say thank you for coming on. I know your life has a lot. You have a lot to do. You're in high demand. I didn't realize you was in this high demand, and which you're traveling up and down and going to see your daughter play. I know you're always busy, and to take time out for us, I really appreciate it. But we always have our guests ask. We always ask our guests to give us give our viewers a little nugget to hang their hat on for the week. So if you don't mind, give the viewers something that they can hang their hat on for the week to make it through. So they're gonna say, Dr. Ingrid Wicker McCree said this, and we're gonna be able to make it through.
Well, I had to go back to the quote that's on my website that my mom has impressed upon me and my brother my entire life. And that is, you are as narrow or as broad as your experiences. And so I share that to say, think out beyond your comfort zone. Think beyond what you're the everyday. What else can you do and be exposed to that's going to broaden your mind, your life, all of those experiences. I mean, and I forgot about a lot of them when you're kind of in a job for so long. I think from August to November of when I decided, to retire, it was like, well, who am I? Right. I've been Ingrid Wicker Cruz McCree for so long. And Ingrid Wicker Cruz McCree attached to NCCU something. So at one point I said, well, who am I?
So you felt like you lost yourself a little bit?
I didn't lose myself, just didn't know what's next. Like
your identity outside of
what is Ingrid outside of NCCU, NCAA. And so probably in November, and I took some professional pictures, preparing for my website, my business cards. And when I got them back, and I was like, whoa, like, who is that chick? And I promise you not, because I hadn't had a makeup artist and took professional pictures since I got married, basically 19 years ago. And so to see that picture, a professionally done picture, I was like, that's who I am. I'm going to be a leader in something else now. I'm going to take all these skills that prepared me at NCCU, and it's going to transition to any other field that I choose, and so I really had to really pause to say, what is it that I want to do? And then I thought, okay, now I got to find a job. Kind of, I got my, as old folks say, I got my pension check, but I got to, like, what else? And now, what else? Cause I like my lifestyle. So, and I didn't, I thought it was going to be slow. And now I'm like having to say no to opportunities because I can't handle but so much. And so I just think everyone needs to just keep broadening their experiences, keep doing things that's going to highlight who you are and everything that you have to give. And I even tell my colleagues who are aspiring to be in the seat, and right now it's being very challenging for Black women to get into the seat, for them to think about other things. Think about professional sports. Think about on the other side of campus, how you can still impact students. If you so choose, desire to want to stay in higher ed, there's other things that you can do.
So, not to cut you off, I apologize. So it just made me think when you said, think about professional sports. So there was, you had a staff member, Jachelle Mitchell. She's one who I think of, who just went from higher ed and brought in, her realm of what she does. I was recently in communication with her, just, talking nonprofit stuff. But it's so many, like you said, different ways to touch and affect the next person.
Yep.
And so yeah. And then another person, I told Jason I probably shouldn't mention. I said, Jason, the last time I saw Ingrid, and he was like, when? And I said, it's one person in Durham who affected so many people who's no longer here, and it was Emma. And so it was, and we knew that when we knew she was in a room, we knew when she had her hand on stuff. And I remember her planning the first breakfast for that last season of baseball.
Yep.
So yeah.
Love Emma. Yeah.
So she's definitely missed. And so I said she was the reason that I got to spend as much time after I graduated at North Carolina Central that I did. I said I felt real important.
She was amazing. She was really amazing. Would do anything that she could to help.
Yes.
And so I think about it was something I was just told to my friends the other day. And I just finished my John Maxwell training. And so I'm always sending them information, just little bits and tips and bits from him. And so the other day I promise you, let me find it. Where is it?
Take your time. We ain't going nowhere, no rush.
That's a shame. This is how much we well, one of them was few leaders are successful unless a lot of people want them to be. And I think that I was so blessed that there was a lot of people that supported me from all just so very diverse backgrounds. Even the ones who didn't really, support me getting the job at first, some of our alums.
Right.
And but I just treated them with respect. And shortly they all became, good friends, and weren't afraid to ask me anything, and I wasn't afraid of them. But I think that's what people and leaders, sometimes don't think about is, who's on your team, and how successful. You can't be successful without people.
Right.
So I can't find the other one. I'm so mad. My memory is so bad. I had to write everything down.
Hey, look, that's the first sign of being vintage.
Not being vintage.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to accept that or
You're
not,
right.
Jason.
Hey, vintage is cool, man. Hey, old fashions are coming back. That vintage fashion, yeah. So you're never out of style.
Okay.
You clean that up nicely.
Yeah. Hey,
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
all right, I got it.
Okay.
Right? This is it.
You got it?
Yeah, so it's from his book, Leadership Gold. And it says, people will summarize your life in one sentence. Pick it now.
I had to write that down.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I want somebody to summarize my life just yet. Oh wow.
That's the whole point. Pick it now. What do you want your legacy to be? And because we're not promised tomorrow, what would they
That's
say
true.
today? So how do you live your life is basically how I read that, right? People will summarize your life in one sentence. Pick it now.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. I'm at to tweet that and give John Maxwell and Dr. Ingrid Wicker McCree credit on this one.
Nah, just get that John Maxwell.
I got you.
She said she wanted no problems.
I mean, I am certified to use all of his teachings.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want nobody getting in trouble. That's a dope one. So Dr. McCree, before we go, like, tell me your sentence. Like, what is your sentence?
She led with integrity and kindness.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be honest. So when I first met you, my buddy was like, I said, "Hey man, that's the AD at Central." He was like, "Go speak." Yeah, go talk to her. I was like, nah, you can't just walk up to somebody like that and speak to her. He said, "Nah, man, she's real cool. Go talk to her." I'm like, nah, man. And I think you saw us talk. You saw us. We were motioning in your direction, and you came up and you spoke. And I was like, "Are you this? She's this approachable?" Flatlined. I was like, "Oh man, I can't believe it. You're real approachable. You're an open person. You're not that I'm the AD. I can't be associated with you. You were real cool."
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I was touched. Man. I was like, "Oh man, she's hot fire."
That's my upbringing.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Both
I take your word for it.
It's my upbringing. Both my parents were in, my mom was a nurse, my dad was in social work and an entrepreneur. So growing up around servant leaders.
I'm gonna say, so you have a love for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I get it.
Well, I gotta say that you definitely are very approachable. You one of the kindest people I've ever met. And very open. Now you're not real sheltered. You mix and mingle with people. Like I see my friends' Instagrams that hang out with you, that were hanging out with you at the tailgates. I'm like, yo, you was hanging out with AD. It's like, yeah, she's real cool people. I'm like, dang.
See, that's the fun thing though. I get to tailgate now the whole game. I don't have to wait after homecoming. I'm after halftime.
Yeah. You ain't got to leave the tent and go speak and get no big check and all that stuff. I got you. But look, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you so much
for coming on.
Thank you.
You could have been anywhere else today on this rainy Sunday afternoon, and I appreciate you coming on to take your time and at least talk with us.
Well, thank you all, and be safe.
Yeah, thank you. I know we're still down here in Florida. We're still cleaning up.
Wow.
So
prayers go out to you and everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
it's real nasty out here in the Carolinas, but it could have been worse.
Well, I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
All right.
You have a good one.
Bye-bye.